Good morning. Welcome to all of you here on site and also to all the colleagues who join us online. We are welcoming you today to a side event. It's the Agriculture Day, and we chose to actually highlight the work that key partners from the EU at field level working in Africa about the work they are doing to actually contribute to achieving the climate agenda through different areas. We will see that later on during the event. But the real focus of the event today is to learn from their experience, learn from them, and try to reflect together and see how we can actually scale up these actions and continue the excellent work they have been doing. Just a small reminder for a logistic issue. If you wish to have the best experience, it's advised to use your headphones so that you will be fully online and able to also listen best to our online speakers. So we will just now start. My name is Etienne Coyet. I'm working in the European Commission in the Sustainable Food System unit. I am very happy to welcome here today on the panel Mrs. Carla Montesi, Director Green Deal and Digital Agenda at INTPA, International Partnership Directorate in the European Commission, Mr. Tony Rinaudo, also known as being the forest maker. Some of you might have seen the recent movie. He is laureate of the Right Livelihoods Prize, which is also known as the Alternative Nobel Prize, for his work on farmer-managed natural regeneration in Western Africa. We will soon hear more about these excellent results. Also pleased to welcome Mr. Odas Kubiwana, who is the regional coordinator for the International Land Coalition Regional Hub based in Kenya. The International Land Coalition is a long-time partner of the EU and is working in securing land tenure rights for vulnerable population. We will learn more about the work you are doing and how you are doing it. And then finally online, a third example, it's the Water Energy for Food initiative, which is a multi-donor initiative. We have the pleasure to have here Marina Kosmus, who is joining us from Germany. She's the coordinator for the Eastern Africa Regional Hub of this initiative. And then we also have the pleasure to welcome Mr. Patrick Katungi, who joined us from Uganda, and he's one of the beneficiaries of this initiative. He will tell us more about concrete work at field level in Uganda. Enough with all this introduction. Now let me give the floor to Carla for a short introductory remarks. Carla, you have the floor. Thank you.
Many thanks. Many thanks, and good morning to you all. I'm very happy to participate to this panel. We are here at the COP in this very important multilateral process, but we all know that part of the solution to climate change and to the green transformation lie at the local level. So I'm very happy to have this panel to share about concrete experience at the local level that as European Union we are supporting, we are funding. Just allow me to give a brief introduction of what we are doing at the European Union to take very strongly this engagement about facing climate change. As you know, we have adopted the Green Deal that is our ambitious set of policies to achieve carbon neutrality by 2015. We know how it's complex to face climate change. This is the reason why with this policy we are tackling different kind of angle. We are working on the agriculture, transport, biodiversity, circular economy, industry, growth. All this sector, we have an engagement on how to transform this sector to move into sustainability. And one of these sectors is, of course, agriculture. because we know very well that in one hand, the agriculture is very much affected by the climate change, but we know, in the other hand, that agriculture is also contributing very much on climate change. So this is the reason why we have, at the European level, adopt the farm-to-fork strategy. It's just how we move our food system into a sustainable food system. Of course, when we look at European, this is our own engagement for Europe, but as you can imagine, we are working with our international partnership, with our partners around the world. This means that we want really to translate our objective, our policies with our partners around the world. And this is the reason why we are working also with our partners in moving to sustainable food system around the world. Today, I said we are here because we know that to succeed in transforming the food system, we need to work with the smallholders farmers. This is the reason why they are the principal beneficiary of our action, but they are also the primary beneficiary of our action, because we know very well that working with smallholders farmers, work with local actors, are often the basis of innovation and the transformation. And the example that we are here today, very different example, are demonstrating that we can really be, the local actors can be really the key actors for the green transformation. I stop here because we want all to listen to their experience. Allow me just to say that as European Union, we are very, very proud that we succeeded to support this kind of action. They are very successful, and our wish is just to learn from this experience and to multiply this experience around the African continent. Many, many thanks.
Thank you, Carla, for these nice words. Now it's the time to turn to our distinguished panelists. The first one, with all honors, it will be Tony Rinaudo. You've been working in the framework of the Regreening Africa program that was supported by the EU. You are at the basis of Farmer-Managed Natural Regeneration, FMNR. This may sound a little bit complex, but I'm sure in essence it is not that difficult, and you will be explaining that to us. Could you also tell us a bit more how you've been able to achieve these impressive results, you together with the communities and the smallholder farmers in Western Africa? Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Etienne, and thank you everybody for the opportunity. Yes, FMNR is very simple. My family and I moved to Niger Republic in West Africa in 1980, and the landscape that confronted us when we arrived there was totally devastated. It was on the point of ecological collapse because all the trees had been removed, and in hindsight also because of climate change, it was barely able to support life in that region. Wind speeds of 70 kilometers per hour burying and abrading the crops. Soil surface temperatures of 60 degrees Celsius. And even in the years when it did rain, there'd be explosions of pest insect attacks. So people were regularly hungry. And in my mind, I thought if deforestation was one of the root causes of these problems, then the solution should be relatively easy. We need to plant trees. And we tried everything. I studied, I consulted the experts, I researched different methods. Nothing worked in a sustainable, economically viable or satisfying way. Over 80% of the trees died, and to add insult or injury to insult, the people called me the crazy white farmer. And it would have been very, very easy to give up and go home. But one day, and it was actually an answer to prayer because I tried everything else, I noticed a bush on the side of the road. And taking a closer look, I realized it's not a bush. This is a tree, it had been cut down, and it was resprouting. And there are millions of these bushes and perhaps billions of dormant seed in these seemingly cleared landscapes. And that was the start of a revolution, farmer-managed natural regeneration, selecting, pruning, and protecting what's already in the ground. So it's very, very simple. It can be very rapid once the people embrace it, and it's scalable. And what I learned was if false beliefs about the value of trees is what caused this destruction in the first place, the key to restoring landscapes at scale is not so much technological. Of course, there's a place for that. It's not so much a question of raising billions of dollars. The key is mindset change. And the solution is literally at our feet. So I realized if we could convince farmers and communities, it's in your best interest to work with nature instead of destroying it and manage some of these trees to regrow on your agricultural land, the rest would be relatively easy. And so from the outset, it's not Tony managed or my organization World Vision managed, it's community managed. And I think this is the key to its success in spreading and having an impact. The farmers own the process. They are the decision makers, and they primarily learnt from each other. Over a period of 20 years following that discovery, FMNR spread at a rate of 250,000 hectares per year for 20 years. 5 million hectares, today sporting more than 200 million trees without planting a single one of them. That wouldn't have happened if it was top-down, Tony managed. This was community-driven. The impact of that is farmers in Niger every year grow an additional 500,000 tonnes of grain without irrigation or fertilizer or even improved seed, simply by working with nature. Gross incomes are in the order of $900 million, about $1,000 per household because of this work. So many people see FMNR as a landscape restoration tool, which it is, but it's important to realize it's also impacting food security, climate, water availability, and because of that security that's created, reducing conflict and potentially reducing migration. So the surprising thing is so many projects spent millions of dollars and still do to this day planting trees. And it begs the question, how is it possible for amongst the world's poorest, most risk-averse and illiterate people to have affected such a change? And it comes back to this empowering and enabling. The people themselves drove this because they were the ones that benefited. And touches on your work. They need to have that assurance that the land belongs to them, that even the trees belong to them. Otherwise, why bother? If there's no assurance I will benefit from my efforts, why bother doing this? In 40 years of promoting FMNR, nobody's ever grabbed me by the shirt and said, Tony, you've ruined my farm or you've ruined my livelihood. Only thankfulness, only blessings. And I realized if we give this an incremental increase in effort, we will experience an exponential increase in impact. And so around 2012, we started partnering with World Agroforestry Centre, Global Evergreening Alliance, and World Vision on our part, and we conducted 3 international conferences in Africa on FMNR. And one of the offshoots of that was the EU-funded Regreening Africa program, which you mentioned, which aims to reverse land degradation on 1 million hectares, benefiting 500,000 people by 2023 in 8 countries. And it's doing this through agroforestry and especially through promoting FMNR by integrating trees on cropland and on grazing land. The second objective, which I think is incredibly important, is it's taking a strategic decision-making process for scaling. We will never achieve scaling through the mere addition of new projects. It will only be achieved through creation of these types of people movements where people embrace it and just do it because it's in to their benefit. We need this kind of exponential growth and the likes of which we saw in Niger, where it spread at 250,000 hectares per year, to generate that kind of impact. So just to finish off, if I could only focus on 3 things, I would argue for an enabling policy environment so people have the motivation, the confidence that they will benefit from their work. Secondly, I would focus on enabling and empowering farmers, peer-to-peer training. Put farmers in the driving seat because it's in their interest. They will be the most motivated to do this. And thirdly, a call for all donors, for governments, for non-government organizations to stop wasting millions of dollars on tree planting where it doesn't work. Yes, of course, where it works, but where it doesn't work, why continue the waste? Thank you. Please examine the evidence for FMNR and appreciate the ability of nature to heal itself if we give it a chance. And then last remark, FMNR, I like to call it a no regrets technology. There's no real risk. There's no real downside. And there's a lovely old adage, if you have nothing to lose and everything to gain, by all means, go for it. Give it all you've got. Pull out the stops. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Amazing, amazing experience, and thank you for your powerful words and also your key elements to take into account if we wish to continue and supporting this work you've been doing. Wonderful, thank you. You also made a very nice connection to our next speaker. You noticed the importance of the land governance and the land ownership, land tenure. So I'm happy now to turn to Mr. Odas Kubiwana. As I remember, he's the Regional Coordinator for International Land Coalition. We've discussed a lot about agriculture, food system, etc., but there's land governance, unfortunately, is still an issue that is not fully understood at the right level it deserves. It's often also forgotten in many of the programs we can see around. Could you tell us a bit more about the importance of land tenure for the climate agenda and also the work of the International Land Coalition? Over to you, Odas.
Thank you very much, Etienne. Look, actually, first of all, the International Coalition is a global network of more than 300 organizations, and we work a lot with the European Commission for several years, actually more than, I think, 20 years, to really push for people-centered land governance. And we all know we are in a climate crisis, and actually we've been in it for quite some time. And climate crisis has a huge impact on agricultural production, a very negative impact. And in this current context, that is happening when we have a rising food demand because of the growing population. So that makes it even worse that you have climate crisis impacting food production in a situation of raising food demand. And we see that to come out of this situation, there is a need to put in place conditions that favors sustainable food production. Because if we are to cope with the climate crisis, we have to come up with sustainable food production systems. And that requires a lot of things. But we've seen that security of land tenure is a key factor. If you have to convince farmers to invest sustainably, you have to be able to tell them that they will be there tomorrow. They will be able to use that land tomorrow. They are not going to plant today and live even before they harvest. That's where really security of land tenure comes in. And that's how we, with the European Commission, invest in ensuring that there is secure land tenure, especially for smallholder farmers. She has talked about it. As we do that, as a network, we do it through members. We have what we call member-led multi-stakeholder platforms. And those platforms, we have them at country level, but also at regional and global level. Those platforms is what really implement the strategy that we implement with partners like the European Commission. And there are a number of categories of people who are very key in this business. If we have to bring about sustainable food systems, if we have to cope with climate crisis, there are very, very important categories of people, and we target those ones. as we engage in these multi-stakeholder platforms to ensure that their secure access and rights to land are guaranteed because of their role in sustainable food production and environment management. And those categories that we target, one, as she said, is smallholder farmers. As a network, we have a pattern of the UN Decade on family farming, and that's for us a very important framework where we engage in different spaces. We support farmers' organization across the continent through a multi-stakeholder platform that is currently hosted by a member, the East African Farmers Federation, to push, especially among other things that the decade is looking at, we push for land rights because there are so many factors that brings about this certain food production. But in many spaces, land rights is forgotten and it's key. So in that initiative, with the support of the Commission, we push for land rights as a key factor if we are to bring about sustainable food system. So the smallholder farmers for us is a very, very important category that will help to sustain food production in an environmentally viable setting. Another category that we target, which is close to that but very specific, is pastoralists. For us, we see pastoralists as a very important, pastoralism as a very important livelihood source, but also an area that needs special attention because of their contribution in climate, but also because of their contribution in bring about sustainable food system. So we invest a lot. For example, we've just concluded a program that I think is very interesting with the European Commission that is known as PLM, Participatory Rangelands Management. And that project for the last 4 years has been helping farmers, pastoralists in East Africa to come up with joint plans on how to use rangelands. And that's from different aspects, from the tenure aspects to really ensure that rangelands, pastoralists have security of tenure on rangelands, because this pastoralism is really a mode of living that should be recognized and some sort of tenure security guaranteed to these people if we really want them to contribute fully in food production and environment management. So the tenure, but also this project was looking also at the livelihood part of it. What is it that can be done in these rangelands for them to be much a source of livelihood to these pastoralist communities? Investment in rangelands. Also very important now when it comes to climate, the rangeland restoration bit of it. That was a very major part of this project. And this was a pilot project, and we are looking into scaling up these techniques, this approach to different places, to different countries, in different parts of the continent. Because, for example, when you go to West Africa, we're talking with ECOWAS, and their major problem is how we can come up with sustainable rangeland management. Because not only this really brings about livelihood, brings about sustainable environment management by pastoralists, but we've seen it contributes a lot on something that is very key, especially in Africa and in West Africa, security, peace building. Because joint planning of rangeland use has really brought about security in those areas. Another category that we focus on that is very key is indigenous peoples, because you will all agree with me that indigenous peoples, indigenous knowledge is very key if we are really to sustain our food systems. Indigenous skills are very key, and you will not expect indigenous peoples to deploy their skills and their knowledge and their capacity if they don't have security of tenure on the territories that actually they belong to them since decades. So we work a lot on ensuring territorial security of tenure for indigenous peoples, especially their rights to ancestral lands like forests. And we have seen that this contributes a lot to the strengthening their role in protecting those spaces, because they have been protecting them anyway. So they are the best people to conserve those areas. You cannot expect to do conservation without those people who have actually been conserving those areas even for decades. So the best way to ensure that those areas are protected and conserved is to ensure that you guarantee secure tenure for the communities who have been there for years. So we see that as a very key factor, and we know that their production systems have actually been the most sustainable anyway. And it's, I think, rather a matter of capacitating them to continue doing that. And one of those ways to capacitate them is to ensure that they are stable. They feel secure where they are. They are not always ready to move because they don't know who will come next to take over that land. There's another very important category of people we target, and those are women and youth. This is a category that is, I would say, cross-cutting in all those others, and without specific target to these two groups, I think, especially, I mean, everywhere, but as far as I'm concerned, in Africa, you have missed the point, because these are two major categories of the African population. If you don't look into specific aspects of women's rights, you have missed the point, because I always say people, even in a community where there is a community land rights, you shouldn't assume that women's rights are covered there. You have to be specific. Go into specifics of what does it mean within even a community. Women access, control, rights over a land that belongs to a community. So it's very important that we don't remain at the general level, but we look at categories, especially like women, because they play a very critical role in food production. Their role is critical and unfortunately most often not recognized. So one way to recognize their role in food production is to ensure that they have secure tenure over the production factors, including most land. Youth, we know Africa is, I think, 70% youth. You cannot talk about people-centered governance when 70% of the population is out of your target. So, and we have a multi-stakeholder platform on women in Africa engaging in different spaces, pushing for pro-women land policies. And we've also a youth, what we call a youth movement. With a youth movement, I think at the end, in May, we've hosted a global youth run forum. And that was really a key moment in the history and the work of the network, because we want to see youth playing the backbone role in what we do, and what we do as our partners, because only inclusive processes will bring about a sustainable food system and will help us to come out of this climate crisis. So that's why we target those categories. The last one, but important, is in general what we call local communities. He talked about it. There is no way you will succeed these things if we are not people-centered. And the people are there, local communities. What is their role? So in the new strategy that we are now implementing, these people are have to play a leading role in bring about all these change we want to see. And we call their organization people's organizations. So those are the people who can bring about sustainable impact if we have to make impact. Impact will not happen at regional level or in the city. It has to happen in communities, and therefore those people at community level have to lead, because they know what is needed. They only need space and to be given space and to be listen and their voices to be amplified. So local community-led interventions. So one of the intervention that we have, which I think is relevant to this topic, is what we call locally managed ecosystems. And there we have a regional platform that actually engage with Regening Africa roads. I remember last year they hosted together a very interesting webinar that was like a space to share experience. And one thing when he was talking that I remembered from that webinar, again, how women and youth are cross-cutting into these things, is that even in this locally led ecosystem restoration, we have to look at women, because women have their own challenge in there. Because one of the things that was said is how when land is degraded, they are the ones who receive the most degraded lands. So that means a lot when it comes to their role in land restoration. So I think there is a lot we can share, but we do a lot with the Commission, and we are very thankful for the support of the Commission, and we look forward to even greater impact together.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rodas, and thanks for we can feel the passion in your in the way you explain what you are doing, and all respect for the work, in particular of some of your partner member organizations who are facing sometimes very critical and difficult situation when they are fighting to defend their rights to access land. Both of our first speakers mentioned this interconnection or this multi-stakeholder approach that is needed. An interconnection is actually also at the heart of our next example. We will be speaking about the Nexus Water, Energy, Food. Marina Cosmos is, as I said, the coordinator for the Eastern Africa Regional Hub, and she will explain a little bit more what is this initiative and how it is trying to actually integrate these different dimensions to ensure that whatever we implement at field level is actually taking into account the different aspects and try to reach an integrated response, which also has the advantage to achieve multiple objectives at a par. Marina, you have the floor.
For the invitation and for giving us the possibility to present our experience and work in the framework of the international initiative. I would like to help my speech with the presentations since I was not able to join in person. We start with the presentation of let me give you an overview of what is With for Food is, which is an international initiative of the European Union, the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the governments of the Netherlands, Sweden through the the Swedish Development International Cooperation Agency, and the US through the US Agency for International Development. So we have here 5 different donors who are supporting the program through the 2 implementing agencies, which are the German Agency for International Cooperation, GS8, and USAID also. So please, next slide, thank you. This is a big program, a $65 million program who support innovators and the dissemination of technologies in 3 different areas, in the water food area, in the energy food area, but also in the water energy food. And this is done through the support and strengthening of the SMEs who are at place at local and regional level. Please, the next one. We are locally implementing through 5 different hubs all over Africa and the Southeast Asia. We are first of all in the Middle East and North Africa. We have an East Africa hub, the West Africa, Southern and Central Africa, and then the South and Southeast Asia. And we are supporting through all of these hubs more than 130 innovators. Please move forward. Thank you. Why we say that the initiative is contributed to support the transformations of climate resilience, or the ways towards, better to say, climate resilient food systems. Through the promotion of the multi-sectoral approaches on different levels, we work, first of all, at the local level and at the regional level through the supporting of the SMEs that, on the other side, work together with smallholders and other end users. In this way, we have also lessons learned, and we also learn from the implementation of these technologies in a special context. These lessons learned, on the other side, would enrich the policy and strategical dialogue at the national and global level. And this have an impact on the improvement of the policy and framework conditions at the national and regional level. So we are trying to do this work and strengthen these elevators, trying to connect the three different interventions level and learning from each other from the implementation and trying to improve that. And we are also supporting just transitions through two different things. The first thing is to enable access to the technologies and to knowledge to use these technologies at the smallholders level. And on the other side, of course, we are taking care of how this access could be done through also access to finance. So in this way, smallholders are able to use these innovations, to have access to the innovations and improve their production system, saving energy and water in their own production systems, making it more sustainable and resilient to climate change. Please move forwards. Thank you. Why? How are we doing this? Most of the, especially, we are trying through the support of small and medium enterprises. They are very a key actor in the dissemination and scaling up such technologies. First of all, because they are on the ground, they know the local needs and they know the context. They know which kind of technologies, how these technologies could be really implemented at the local place. And in this way, SMEs play a crucial role for the transformations of agri-food systems because they are key to multiply and scale up these innovations. On the other side, as I said before, these innovations improve the resilience of the small farming by reducing climate risks and adapting themselves better to the changes conditions. Please move forwards. How these technologies contribute, or these innovations contribute in two different ways. First of all, could be in adaptations, like for example, the supporting of the technologies, digital technology information and service with forecasting weather services that let other farmers to know how to adapt to the weather conditions and the variability in rainfalls, for example. They also have different sort of technologies on solar milling, on solar cooling, on small and water irrigation systems, etc. So all these innovations are in one way or another one contributed to adapt or to mitigate climate change. We do this also through supporting access to farmers, to end users, and also seeing which kind of financial mechanisms and alternative can we develop that they are like right to the context and see how the end users could also have access to these technologies and use it at place. Please move forwards. These are some of the East Africa regional hubs technologies which are disseminating by the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises. As you see, we have like from climate smart fruit processing in Kenya to solar cooling to water and energy efficiency in the tea sectors. And what is interesting about this, thinking the three sectors together, like thinking on multi-sectoral things and trying to see how through the use and adaptation of these technologies, how can we also diminish or reduce trade-offs between different sectors. For example, in the irrigation and energy sectors regarding the production systems on the ground. So thinking three sectors at once, we can see also where can we see the negative effects and how can we address this in a better form, and then letting them be more sustainable. So perhaps we can see the last slide, please. Next one. Yeah, and the impact for the program at the moment is we are supporting, as I said before, more than 139 innovators, and this impact more than 500,000 smallholders and other end users such as processing companies. We are with this program saving 57 million tons of CO2, 24 million kilowatt hours of energy, and 291 million of water. On the other side, and in addition, we are also supporting the productions of 1 million tons of food in a more sustainable way, and also more than 72,000 hectares of land managed in a more sustainable way for supporting the transformations to climate resilient food system. Thank you very much, and I give the floors to Patrick now. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Patrick, we are happy to have you with us, and the floor is yours. We're happy to listen to you.
Great, thank you, and thanks once again for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this event. My name is Patrick Katonji, working with Asili Agriculture as the head of small scale producer services. No, that's not great. Cool. Yes, working with Asili Agriculture in Uganda. Next slide, please. Okay, so Asili Agriculture is a food security platform for East Africa, and our main purpose is to catalyze a more equitable, resilient, and regenerative food system with a vision of being a system that is in harmony with nature, empowers farmers and nourishes communities and creates local prosperity. Asili Agriculture is apparently the largest producer of maize and soybean in Uganda, with about 9,400 hectares under the climate smart support or management for the different producers that we are supporting. That is both the enterprise producers and the small scale producers. And this is resulting in 30,000 metric tons of merchandised food commodity across East Africa annually, which represents 165 million meals. Meals. We are doing all this in partnership with many partners, but because of time and space, I would like to recognize, for example, IFC, that is supporting our business to scale, water and energy for food, through Alpha Mundi and GIZ, supporting our carbon project with technical support and partnership with unique land use. Next slide. Great. So our mission is to deliver integrated agriculture, land management, and marketplace solutions that empower farmers and food system stakeholders to sustainably increase profitability, resilience, and nutrition. Okay. Our agriculture land management services are tailored for two categories of producers that we support, which are the enterprise producers and the small scale producers. Enterprise producers, those are the ones that are having on average about 100 hectares plus, and then the small scale producers having an average of less or equal to 1 hectare. So these producers are the center to our marketplace we are calling Soko Asili. And the digital marketplace is creating a linkage, is enabling these producers to connect to the different food system stakeholders. For example, the input suppliers, the financials. Those are like the bank, the financial institutions like the banks or MFIs, and grain traders and commodity buyers. Now, at a future point in time, we are also looking at carbon retailers playing a part on this marketplace to be able to purchase carbon credits. Okay, next slide. Okay, great. So our mission is to deliver integrated agricultural land management that we've seen. Great. So our integrated land management and marketplace solutions mainly drive climate change resilience and food system profitability. Our land management practices follow three key pillars or pillar practices, which are mainly no-till farming, mulching of soil cover, and crop rotation. With doing this, we are realizing an estimate of, say, 4 metric tons of carbon sequestration per hectare, reduction in emissions and chemical application, improved soil health, increase in yield and household income, as well as a reduction in labor and other operational costs. Now, the marketplace drives resilience and profitability of these different stakeholders. For example, through building stakeholder capacity, access to markets and information, for example, about the information about carbon pricing information or prevailing market prices for commodity, increased resiliency amongst exogenous shocks, and this unlocks liquidity. Okay, next slide. So our land management practices have been following these different three KPIs, and through practicing climate smart agriculture, we realize 3.5x or times gross profit per hectare per year, and a 5 times result, or say raw materials per hectare per season for the different produce. Here I'm speaking of maize in particular and soybean. And regarding carbon, we notice an estimate of 4 metric tons sequestered per hectare per year. Okay, next. Okay, so apparently we are working on a carbon credits project with our different partners, and this project is to enable small-scale producers to monetize climate-smart agriculture. Now, the transfer of the climate-smart practices and the digital monitoring that are under our land management solutions being enabled by the marketplace. We're calling the marketplace platform, we're calling Soko Asili, which is to enable us aggregate data for carbon data from the different third-party farmers, and then enable us redistribute proceeds that can be in form of inputs or cash. Apparently, we are done, or we just completed a pre-feasibility study with unique land use, and it shows great potential for this project. However, it also shows a long road of some challenges ahead of us, and we hope that COP27 will be that catalyst. And driving force that will enable us push this project towards its success. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you, Marina, again. So now, dear colleagues, we've spent some time to listen to our partners and learn a bit more about the work they are doing at that field level, and in particular, the common feature between these different initiatives is the will to actually work with the farmers, with the smallholders, with the communities. Now we have 10 minutes left, more or less, and I would like to turn to those who have the chance to actually be physically present here with us. If you have any question to direct to some of our partners, as Carla was rightly saying, we are here today to listen to them, so I would invite you to put your question to either Tony or Das, or maybe Marina or Patrick online.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Jana, and I'm here with We Are Tomorrow. And I was really glad that the point of youth came up, and I would like to ask from the European Commission. I think the elephant in the room around land rights and tenure is climate education. And so in this cooperation and these programs, how is the European Commission going to ensure that we're looking towards the current and the next generations of farmers? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we take 2 or 3 questions. I see 2 for the time being, and then we turn to our speakers.
Thank you. My name is Rukshana. I work for the International Land Coalition. Somewhat similar to what Jana has said, maybe I'm directing my question to Tony. Tony, you have used the word security in your presentation, how it has actually increased food security and among people and the income as well. So what did you mean by security here? And particularly in the context of gender security and territorial rights of people, how does it come into operation in your work? Thank you.
Thank you. I see one other question here in the front, and then we will turn to our speakers.
Thank you very much. That was really empowering me. We need this good news. Tony, you said don't waste money on planting trees. Do you know about the costs per hectare of planting trees compared to the method you use? Maybe that's interesting for everybody.
Thank you very much. If I may, I would first turn to Carla for the question of on the use, if you are.
Yes, in fact, you're absolutely right, and I think I want to join others to what he was saying. In everything that we are doing and that we will do, we will take youth and the women. I wanted to take the opportunity to underline once again in everything that we do. So we are really pushing for some fast dialogue with youth. It's very, very important. You have seen at the European Commission how we have integrated the dialogue with youth as one of the key priorities. But the second point is mainstreaming, focusing on youth, on everything that we are supporting. And the gender will come with youth. So a really integration at the level of policy dialogue, and at the level of action, taking into account the present and the future generation and everything that we do. And if I can add then a question for Tony and the others, I will say, you mentioned really the key points, and for both of you, it was clear the issue of the right to land, that it's very, very important. It's something that we are putting on the table on our diplomatic dialogue with all our partner countries. In all the reforms that we are pushing with our partner countries, there is always the issue of the right to land, because we see very well the importance of this, what to do, in fact, to scale up your action, and how we to do more to solve this issue of the right to land. Many thanks.
Thank you, Carla. Now, I would invite Tony to take the floor. You had a question on security. What do you understand? There was another question on the coast, and then the last question of Carla on the upscaling. Mm-hmm. Over to you.
Thank you. So, 2 types of security. One, food security. People have more and better food to eat. The land becomes more productive. And when you're regenerating indigenous species, it's much more nutritious than simply harvesting a carbohydrate-based grain. So more food and better nutrition, but also security from conflict. When there are more resources to go around, more water, more fuel wood, more food, more fodder, there's less reason to fight over scarce resources. So it works both ways in that. And I think if I understood the second part of your question, how do we go about it in terms of tenure? Is that correct? So most governments in Africa at least have made international commitments on various things. Stop land degradation, stop biodiversity loss, reduce emissions for climate change. We work with communities building their capacity to advocate. There's a method called community voice and action. And we enable them to go before the authorities and ask, can we help you achieve your internationally declared targets? Come and look at what we're doing. Look at the impact. And through that kind of dialogue, hopefully, one of the outcomes is greater land tenure security. Thank you. And then the second part of the question, so I need to modify a little bit. Tree planting is still important. I argued, don't waste money where it doesn't work. So we also plant trees. Typical tree planting projects can cost anything from $400 per hectare and up. I read one report where it reached even $8,000 per hectare. A typical FM&R project is in the order of $50 per hectare. However, once you've released that information and people want to do it, it's really the cost of their own labour, voluntary labour, not paid from an external source. One study in Niger estimated that farm labour to do FM&R is around $14 per hectare. So relatively speaking, it's very, very cheap. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Very interesting. Now, I would ask if you could say a few words as well on this question of scaling up. What would be needed? What do you see as key factors if we wish to expand?
I think, thank you very much. I think, especially in Africa, with VGTs and other frameworks, we've really seen progress in terms of policy formulations. I think we need to invest more in policy implementation. There is a huge gap between policy and policy implementation. Of course, there's still some work at policy level, but I think many countries have got policies and progressive land laws, but implementation is, I think, where now there is a need for stronger focus and investments, and that's where actually the bit of people-centered comes in. Who does implement this? Because the implementation is what is going to really change lives. Policies, yes, but if they are not implemented, we see in many countries, if I take the example of Kenya, they have a very nice community-run act, but the implementation is where now the bottleneck is. How do we together support, push the implementation that really reach people at community level? And there I see two things. One is, I think, the issue is I think one is political will, because I believe if this is a priority for policymakers, resources will be made available. How do we really push for political will when it comes to implementation, not to just policy formulation? I think this is something we could push together. Political will, increase political will to implement progressive land policies, and then of course when there is political will, there are also need for resources. How do we together support policy implementation in different countries, resource-wise, to really ensure that there's security of tenure for women, for young, for indigenous peoples, for those groups that we have seen that are key if we are to succeed sustainable food systems and get out of the climate crisis. I think there's no time. I want to talk about youth a bit. Because for me, I think youth are inheriting something, almost a dead planet. And that is because of us. We really owe them more than just what we are saying. We've destroyed a planet and we are handing over to them something that is not working. So we know them space, we owe them investment to make sure that this thing can be reversed. Because I think as we are talking about loss and damage for youth, we owe them something like that. All of us. What do we do about it?
Very, very nice words, very powerful. And Tony, again, many thanks. I would like to invite you to join me in thanking again our panelists and Carla, also Marina and Patrick who join online. I invite you as well to look on the web for these experiences. You can find a wealth of information on what they are doing, and I invite you as well to continue with your efforts together all. As Odas was saying, we can try to improve the situation and at least leave a better world for the youth and the next generation. Thank you very much to everyone.